Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining us for our event with Arisa White and her new book, Who's Your Daddy? We have a quintet of readings to celebrate. Arisa is joined by Dan Alter, Michael M.J. Jones, Hernan de la Cruz Ramos, and A.A. Vincent, all former students of Arisa's. I know we're all in for a warm, special evening. I'm very happy that you're all here with us. My name is Evan Karp. I'm the events manager of Booksmith. We're an independent bookstore and a mainstay of San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district since 1976. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce tonight's authors, and I'm going to introduce them in the order in which they're going to read. The first author is Dan Alter. Dan's poems and reviews have been published in journals, including Field, 14 Hills, Pank, and Ziziva. His first collection, My Little Book of Exiles, will be out in 2021, this year, from Eyewear Press. He lives with his wife and daughter in Berkeley and makes his living as an IBEW electrician. Hernan de la Cruz Ramos is a poet from northern New Jersey, and he currently resides in Oakland, California. He's been published in The Night Heron Barks and can be found on social media at Pen Pal Socks. Michael M.J. Jones is a poet and parent in Oakland, California. Their work is featured or forthcoming at Anomaly, Kissing Dynamite, Borderlands Texas Poetry Review, and Tri-Quarterly Review. They are an assistant poetry editor at Foglifter Press and have received fellowships from the Hurston Wright Foundation, Vona Voices, and Kearney Street Workshop. They are currently an MFA graduate fellow at Mills College. A.A. Vincent is a disabled poet and essayist and is a product of Chicago's South Side and its suburbs. Her work has appeared in Santa Clara Review, SF Weekly, Quiet Lightning, and Street Sheet SF. She received her MFA in writing from the University of San Francisco. And Arisa White is a Cave Canem Fellow and the author of You're the Most Beautiful Thing That Happened, A Penny Saved, and Haraz Nest. Her poetry has been nominated for a Lambda Literary Award, NAACP Image Award, California Book Award, and Wheatley Book Award. The chapbook Fish Walking and Other Bedtime Stories for My Wife won the inaugural Per Diem Poetry Prize. She's the co-author of Biddy Mason Speaks Up, the second book in the Fighting for Justice series for young readers, which received the Nautilus Book Award Gold Medal for middle grade nonfiction and the Maine Literary Book Award for young people's literature. Who's Your Daddy is her poetic memoir debut from Augury Books. Arisa serves on the boards of directors for both Foglifter and Pneumatic Press and is an assistant professor of creative writing at Colby College. Lots of love for Arisa here in the Bay Area, and so happy to be hosting this tonight. Thank you all so much for being here, for supporting local authors and independent bookstores. If you don't have a copy of Who's Your Daddy yet, you weren't listening a moment ago, go buy it. I'm going to drop the link here now, but I'm very happy to turn it over to Arisa now. Arisa, congratulations on the book, and thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Evan, and thank you so much, Booksmith, for having us. And thank you so much, all of your pretty faces, Hernan, MJ, Dan, Ariel. It's such a pleasure that you agreed to read with me to celebrate this book. And just kind of even thinking back like how I met you all. Like Dan, I met at like sort of pretty much the first years I moved to the Bay Area from the East Coast after graduate school. And I remember us like meeting in a cafe and talking about statelessness because there was like a performance with hip hop. And so it was just wonderful and crazy. And then years later, as a visiting professor at St. Mary's, there you were, like sitting in the classroom. I'm like, Dad, oh my God. So it felt like a nice little circle. And then MJ, we met at Kearney Street workshop for the Intergenerational Writers Lab. And what was interesting about the Intergenerational Writers Lab was like that was like the first workshop I was able to get into when I like moved to the Bay. And I was like, what am I doing? I don't know what to do. And then I got into IWL and just met so many wonderful writers. And when I was then asked by Jason to like come on and be an instructor, I was like, oh my God, this is just a great way to give back to this community that I felt really grounded me in the Bay Area at that time. And Hernan, another thing, University of San Francisco, another visiting gig. Can you all tell I was doing the adjunct hustle? So, but with that hustle, I got to meet all y'all. And so I just think, like, you know, at night riding the bus after workshops, which were so good and they were so rich, and you all really challenged me. I just remember, like, there was this moment where we had to figure out some ground rules, because you all were just like, it was a good moment though, because we had to really think about what we all need in a workshop space and how can we be respectful of that, and you know, what are the boundaries that can come out of a writing community that are actually authentic. But Hernan, you've just been growing. You've just been doing some really great things with your work. So I'm just excited for the way in which you're taking risk. And Ariel, you know, we had that summer together working on your thesis manuscript. And I just loved the journey that you were going on, the philosophical, the spiritual, the religious, thinking about, you know, interracial adoption, growing up in Chicago, just all of those ways in which you were navigating the in-between spaces that force us to break ourselves out of binary thinking. So it is a pleasure, and I'm so excited for the gems of poetry that you all are releasing into the world. So thank you for letting me be a part of your journey and a part of your personal lives, and to offer advice, and you all give me advice. So it's been beautiful. So thank you. So Dan, I can't wait to hear what you got for us. And I asked them all to write about fathers. So we're kind of on this little similar journey of fatherhood and parenthood and paternalism, and thinking about those things in the patriarchy, I guess. Okay, cool.
Okay, well, first I have to say thank you. This book, it's no joke. You got to get this book. This book is like, it's a book of poetry that literally is hard to stop reading, right? Right. It's like it's and I could say a lot of other things about it, but oops, my time is short. So I'm going to read poems about mostly about being a father, but this one has both, has my father and my fatherhood in it. So it's called The Wanderer's Psalm in Search of Home. Oh, and also in the spirit of Arisa's book, this is hybrid. It looks like that. You know, it's got different kinds of text in it. It's there's an epigraph from Psalm 137, 5, 6, my translation. If I forget you, Jerusalem, let my right hand forget. Let my tongue be glued to the roof of my mouth if I do not remember you, if I do not raise Jerusalem up over all my happiness. The Wanderer's Psalm in Search of Home. 1. From the port, the bus rolls along the Mediterranean until it turns east for the ascent. The road from the coast is, in 1986, a 2-lane highway through dry scrub pine hills and mowed fields. Climbing, you pass strategically abandoned armored cars and giant signs of a Hebrew saint's stuttering last words. Around the last bend, the first of the many Jerusalems, the expanding limestone Jewish city spreads before you, with the old walled city inside it, the concrete Arab city shadowed behind, and the cloud of the mythic city hanging above. 2. I threw a dime into the European fountain. Forget, my father. Shaved my face too hard while I was counting. Forget, my home. I cut my hair in the bathroom of a train. To sleep, my father. Counted sleeper cars with the sound of my name. My father, to sleep in the wind. My guitar protected in something too soft. How can I sing? Kilometers kept washing off my father's song in a strange land. Tried to agree with the bare sky at least, empty to sleep. Aegean sundown and a ship east. Forget my way home. 3. 25 years later, the living room floor is littered, plastic rings, half-chewed board books, soft objects concealing bells. A few minutes ago, she was red and screaming against my chest. Now she babbles, mouths an aqua or canary yellow ring, and lifts interested blue eyes. The room encloses us with all the forward pressure of DNA doubling. Above us, 2 bedrooms, an insulated attic to trap the heat, and the common American shingle roof to keep the rain out. 4. I have given my hand away for a visible child. Forget or forgive my father. I may get it up. I may get it back. She looks up. If I forget thee, let my right hand be lost with the left one. If I do not place thee over all my happiness, let my tongue shut itself into the box of my mouth. 5. Set my pack on the bed, but I had dropped the pocket knife somewhere in Austria, or was it the eastern border of France? The gray weight buckled back on, I walked and studied the ground while the colors were loosening their hold from small shapes. And it was cold that evening, and the windbreak trees along the empty field were whirring with blackbirds, or I was hovering along the empty road still pulsing with day heat. But the branches were thick with them. I wanted a story, or I wanted to know something about home. Getting back to the hostel took hours, whirring on the way, bare field, full trees, all that walking in the dark. So that's leading with the long one. And I do want to say on my own behalf that these poems I'm reading tonight are all going to be in my first book of poems called My Little Book of Exiles, which is coming out this fall. So this poem is called Daughter Songs with Paul Simon, and for the poetry geeks out there, it's a golden shovel. Daughter Songs. I am always thinking about time, the fluid or pool where our minds swim. Like if I see trees, it was the other tree I saw, or the wind hissing through them, and what I want to say the wind says better. Take, for instance, a time the Stevie Wonder song from 1972 comes on and dissolves on the tongue as if it was a phyllo dough of his voices and supple Rhodes chords layered one at a time from every point in your life you ever heard it. His surge of innocence. I love, I love, I love, I love every little thing about you. Can you locate a time it stands still by itself, not pouring backwards and forwards its stream of confidences? And doesn't everything that sweet feel like long ago, like echoes caught in the honey trap of the past, as if it must leave before it has arrived, but arrive you have, who still belong to yourself, looking up surprised as I come or go, straining away from my memories toward you, lifting you when you wake. I have no container for that feeling, the new skin, the climbing onto me. The photograph won't hold this. So we slough after you in our frazzle to preserve your small, unblemished body from blunt things. Yes, but the memories, they're already mounding up around you. And who has a shovel? And finally, all that's in my hands is a song, chorusing back through the leaving and the left, which I'm carrying for any chance to sing you. Thank you.
That was beautiful. You said phyllo dough in that poem, and it was just gorgeous. Nice.
Okay, so I guess I just go next. That was great, Dan. I was shook. Thank you, Evan and Booksmith, for putting on this reading. Thank you, Arisa, for everything. Thank you, all the other readers, for sharing space with me. And thank you, everybody in the audience. Please make some noise in the chat because like we can't see you in this format. So seeing you in the chat would be nice. So I think it's funny that Dan started with a long piece that was a hybrid piece inspired by Arisa's new book, because I did the same thing. Hopefully you can see my screen. Everything good, right? Cool. So I did the same thing and I thought it would be fitting. I've been working on this poem for a few years. It really started taking form in Arisa's workshop back at USF. And reading the book, like Dan said, it was hard to put down. It just kept scrolling through. And I felt inspired to try to reshape it. So I have two pieces. This is the first one. An elegy in fragments. Is this all you have earned? My most vivid memories of you are the ones in which you are dying. I catalog every one. I first saw it at Tita Leah's yard. Grandma walking you by hand to the table, how hard it was for you to eat a burger, the beef falling over and over, Grandma reminding you to not just eat the bread. Then the silence. Is it selfish to say I felt betrayed that I found out this way? Then no one uttered a word before I watched you closing your mouth as if for the first time and still failing to complete the simple feat of eating. The stiffness of your arms on my shoulders when I said goodbye. I felt myself forgotten then. Immediately I conjured questions. What the weather was like in San Sebastian, what your home looked like in PR, and how you got here, how you met Grandma and raised my father, or didn't from what Grandma says, how you built him his first car, how you even got this far, owning a house in Patterson, whose first floor you rent out to other Puerto Rican immigrants, all lost to the mud of your muddied brain. Maybe that's the wrong word. Untroubled, hyper-focused on maybe nothing, more absent, stumbling, but maybe that implies too much. After you died, I called to say happy birthday and how'd the surgery go. Grandma thinks she can will herself back to health. The pills make me feel crazy and drowsy. I told the doctor I'm not doing no more PT. She thinks CBD ointment will get her stoned. I asked her for a story and Grandma recalled her first day of school. She recalled the first words in English she learned was motherfucker. That's what all the boys in my class around me was saying. I went home and told my mother and she slapped the shit out of me. She laughed hard enough that I can see her through the receiver. I wonder what the conversation was like when my parents decided to stop hitting me. I called my father next and he said the weed will give me Alzheimer's. He said, maybe Chassie dying was what gave my father Alzheimer's. He said he's sorry for leaving me alone to put Shorty down. I just couldn't do it, he said. He was worried it would give him Alzheimer's. Every time he forgets an actor's name or the name of a song, every time. 10 days before you died, we watched Grandma feed you what she would later tell us was your last meal, pudding and ice cream. It's the only thing that doesn't hurt him. Grandma said, oh yeah, he tried to bite me, gently massaging his bent leg. It's the only way it'll straighten. You know, he would leave me alone with Chito and Hector and Yvette, go out drinking with his friends. He'd come home and I'd curse his ass out. He caught me in the jaw once or twice. My father walked into the kitchen when she says this. She ran through all the pills on the shelf. This is so he'll eat. This is for pain. This is so he shits right. And this is for pain. And this is for bed sores. And this is also for pain. When is the last time I pronounced my name correctly? Has it ever truly been mine? Passed down my bloodline, even I forget sometimes that your name was Hernan. Herman to your white work friends. Towards the end, your hand in mine and Grandma's as she recites a prayer I'm struggling to mentally translate. Will God only let you into his kingdom if I listen intently? My throat in my chest, I ask if I can do a Buddhist chant, and she said, any prayer is prayer, Papi. Just like any song, we've convinced ourselves that the repetition of words works magic. Each syllable we thought we could drop at first like pennies into a bank, but then more like a quarter, heavy with hope into a bottomless fountain, getting back barely a sigh. Was this the first time my brother and I ever cried together, even after fighting on the car ride over, which we did more often? Younger but taller than me, I stood on my toes as he lowered his head into my chest. Towards the end, you rarely spoke. All those stories you could have told gone to the graying matter of getting old. I picture each memory a different hue of pink slowly draining, the decaying of a brain that barely recognizes its name, its wife, its children, and theirs. Is this what I am heir to? Will the lost take my father too? Picture my mother in a condo in Jersey, finally sold our home to pay bills, nurturing him in his aged youth. Picture my father now as a child inside his own mind, staring out through a grown man's eyes at his own dad in the bed. I don't even feel like an adult yet. Will I at 47? Is the day coming when I will hear my own voice as that of a man's, not a boy? I summon my younger self, and know only the stench of your beer breath, the rugged leather of your chin's skin rubbing against my forehead when I'd hug you, your laugh like a rudder, repeatedly interrupted, rapid, intermittent esophagus eruptions, all the warmth of your wrinkled face, waves in a thick blanket. How often I think back to my younger self. How often my father went alone to your home because my brother and I didn't want to go. If we knew what we know, every moment a missed opportunity, each one hanging in my lungs as my co-teacher and I beg our students to talk to their grandparents for a project. How many times did I choose video games over you, television over you? In my quest to find my voice, I ignored yours. Who or what is this confessional for? I step out. I address you now, reader, listener. Do you know why you're here? Do you see him like I do? Strapped to his favorite chair, a sweater bound around his waist, bruises again on grandma's face, not like the ones when he was too young to know what to do with his anger, with his fear of being a bad father. Not like those times, this time more, like a child flailing. I picture myself the same here, grasping at grunts, reaching for memories like strings to balloons already ready to pop. Your eyes as gray as your beard. When grandma said, "Te quiero, Hernan," did your eyes turn brown? For just a second. Did you see us then? When did you go missing? Do you hear me now? Do you hear me? Let me drink some more. Thank you. And then I have a short one that I got to work with Arisa again for my thesis. And this is one of the times that she just like read this poem at me. And that was the biggest boost to my ego that I've had ever. Okay, so this is called Mess. Now I lay here, agape, arms spread, wings or Christ, whatever you want to call it, and wait, hoping my audacious openness gets you to climb in. I am of the body, all its aches and whistles, every burn and displaced bristle, the cracks between my knuckles. I am so tired of the body. How many ways can I make desire and hunger into mouth and sand before they mean nothing? How often has love gone nameless in my stead? I want to be your anything. The space above my knee, a perfect pedestal to tie your shoes when you feel lazy. Carry you when you feel heavy in this mess of bones and flesh. Set me ablaze to make good lighting for your face. Thank you.
So great, Anand. So great. I love that. I mean, any prayer is a prayer, Poppy. Nice.
I think this is me now, everybody. Hey, beautiful work so far. I never know like how much pause to give something because I usually get lost in other people's words. So now I'm like, okay, let me remember what I was reading. So thanks y'all for sharing your beautiful work so far. I'm gonna read things that I never read. So this should be interesting. A lot of work about my family. I actually don't read a ton, so I'm looking forward to doing so. So I have some 3 shorter poems for you. I'll just begin. Invocation. Enough shiftless hotel lobbies. Soon chlorine becomes home. Pops left a mammoth cave in my bedroom door upon his premature departure, flew his truck straight through it. Monsters from the deep, horned, winged, cloaked shadowlings crossed the veil, cursed me in omnipotence. The summer our distance thickened, everything else was thin, my hollow body, gilded air, cerulean atmosphere splayed across vision. Labyrinthine tongues howled their way out of my bottle mouth, no language of man. Guttural prayers, sound alone, an unyielding grief. When Pops rammed the steel chariot through veins, capillaries, chambers, out the walls of my heart, leaving a 5-point wound, I had nothing corporeal, slimmed into stardust. This is my longer piece. Rita's on Stenton. What you know about struggle, about real shit. You take hood vacations, you don't stay there. I am 9, caramelized in summer's time, cradled in our van en route to Philly. Brother and I, chestnut and beige, sleep deep while the night sky blues to pale morning. We wake in Ohio, turnpike in sight, eager and saving our breaths for wishes. Up front, Pops rocks to heartbeat reggae now, drums the steering wheel, thrumming hot leather, his rearview gaze concerts its camouflage. Suburb soft, high yellow bougie behind, you haven't had to work for nothing, have you? Pops cruises through tumultuating earth, tunnel then green, tunnel then falling rocks, until hills fall flat as his promises. We pummel old man with "Are we there yet?" Pops, cool and sunglass, trades tracks to Jill Scott, who asks if he remembers loving her. Silent, stoic, we roll past row homes. Ivy swallows red bricks, drapes down freezes, our white van a golf ball against verdant shrubs. The car slows, our heartbeats quicken to gold. We do not pause for a dawdling Pops. We bolt, slap happy to grandmama's door. We jump up high, beating chests, buzzing bells, hot sand overflowing our thin skin frames. My sweet giraffe of a cousin appears. I fling my arms around his bag of bones. I straddle dance the archway, swivel back, and see Pops still back there. Took a beating to get y'all what you got, you understand me? I'd taken a beating. He folds his cinnamon hands, looks misplaced as a praying mantis in water ice, with his back to the hood. All right, last one. This is new shit, as they say. New shit, so be nice to me about it. All right. When fam says he could never be Trayvon because he knows better. A silence, then a tomb, grows across my mouth, deadens the roof, tastes of metal smoke, hot blood chokes, speech knows no tongue. He takes my silence as a sign that he has won whatever argument he is trying to still convince his own damn self of, and not of my purpled shame, not of a blood river behind damned lips, not of the catacomb of row after row after row after row after row of dead Black child piled between my larynx and my staring infant son. Thank you.
Nice. That mammoth cave is just so evocative. Nice.
Well, I believe it's my turn to read. Yes, I'm gonna read two pieces. The The first one is about my biological father, whom I've never met, and is called An Absence Born of Theft. An absence born of theft remakes itself into displaced ceilings and fire-burnt roofs, discarded front doors, hollowed into the middle, serving an abusive reminder to memory, a 2-minute raise memorializing a desolate spirit, a tall fury, directions in repair, perfect corridors left in echo, the shoes on the mat just inside the entryway. You made half of me and took it when you left. Can you blame me for asking you to give it back? How lonely it must be, caught in the trap of your own lies, caught in the blood of your own wounds. I wonder what it was that made you step out of yourself, to love the bottle and the beating instead of your babies and family. Every time the maelstrom crystallized, it pooled in your gut, sickening your tongue, and I do not know why I was ever told your name. You are an absence born of theft. So how can I miss you? I am what you didn't take. You stole yourself away in gladness. And then my second one is longer and is called Unnamed. And these are both like new, like hella new poems. So sorry. Okay. Unnamed. I was never aged when I first knew my name. I was always aged when I first heard it was something else. There is so much space between the letters. I still don't know how to make the whiteness between, black like my skin, black like my tongue. I still have yet to reckon with the land of my body bought in prayer. I run to and from my name, always have. An animal is a harder thing to keep alive outside the order of hierarchy. It has always been between the gun, control, and the grass, dew. Of course, the hunter understands what it is to conquer a name. Of course, the lion knows itself to be an invincibility, even at the end of a gun, even in search of its pride. What good will a gem be after it is pried out of the body? I grew up envious of the way nature understands your name. Me, familiar with the agony at carrying other people's names except mine. There is so much black and white between the letters. I am rewinding a reckoning with my land, with my body. You can buy a crystal, but you cannot poach a lion, or at least that's what's been said. You can buy a baby, but you cannot remove its blackness, or at least that's what's been tried. You can erase a name, but you cannot pretend it was never written, or at least that's what's been done. I used to think the crystal is too hard a thing to hold inside myself. No, a lion is better. Genus over gem to understand someone's core. The earth folding pressure into beauty is made a commodity of a different kind. How do you raise someone you don't really understand? How do you justify your jealousy when you withheld a truth that was never yours to claim? The obliviousness of narrative when you are not the one without it, when you control it. You erase a memory by never talking about it. I have no memory because you never asked. What is it like being adopted? How should I talk about your benevolent silence? Why should I hold all your quiet words? I had another name, Gem, made by my mama, Black. I was given another name, Genus, made of an adoptive dad, White. And I take back a power that was never yours, Dad, the name you gave me. Ariel means lion of God or light of God. My name was Crystal. Mama liked it. They are a study in two different stories. Me reclaiming my Black name, yet I have lived so long in this white one. The question becomes how to reckon with my power. Was it easier to tell me the state terminates the rights of mothers with struggles, rather than you felt like you were saving me from the hood? What good is salvation if it saves the animal and the earth through entitlement? How much is lost when salvation takes more than it gives? Is it still worth it? Truthfully, it is hard to shed this name I had belonged to for so long, and there are so many silences in it, so many ways it has seemed far away from me, just like the times I have felt far away from you, felt strange and unearthed too soon, because no matter what, you were not the one to plant me, but you did uproot me. And just because you made the sun white doesn't mean that I forgot what the moon looks like. I can still hear you proudly say, oh, she never needed to be told she was adopted. And you said it like it was an open secret that you rarely needed to acknowledge, believing I've been self-sufficient in my self-image to never question my Blackness or lineage, to never need the conversation of my unnaming. And it's gotten harder over the years to explain who my dad is. Is it you or him? Your physical presence and his biological status are two sides of the same coin. What place does his name hold? What place should your presence hold? This is a poem about the ways I have been reclaiming myself. This is a poem about enduring the pain of parental anger, no matter which dad I name. I wonder, why didn't you consider keeping my first name somewhere other than discarded? To be present is to be emotional, which I felt I could rarely be around you. The fastest way back to normality for you meant the fastest way back to your comfort, not mine. And I got used to leaving my presence behind for you, repressing my center. Now, I wonder where my center is. Is it in your whiteness or in the supposed disposability of my Blackness? Anything like a birth feels like a rescue when it is taken from a dispossessed body. Born of these flat water lands, I am a Black miracle of my own making and remaking. Thank you.
Yes, all over the place. That's so good. Oh God, so good. You all are so good. So good. Thank you. So I'm gonna read from Who's Your Dad? Look, Who's Your Daddy twice? So I'm gonna read from the third section, which opens with the Guyanese proverb, "Woman reign is never done," which translates sort of as a nagging woman can be an endless irritant. And so this is sort of connected to the insistence that my mother's insistence that I write my father. My mother says she has an address in Guyana. You want to write your father. It is through inflection she makes her directives questions. She doesn't intonate high, just enough so her implicit meaning isn't lost to freedom of personal choice. I feel my face up against the bluest door and it's about to open. It was Avery, Gerald's youngest brother, who gave my mother the address when she ran into him in Brooklyn one weekend. I meet Avery over the phone. This is my uncle. He lives in Queens, New York. He has a son, my cousin, and I'm branching out in ways that make me anxious. I'm thinking more people to be accountable to, more expectations to navigate, more care to give. His voice is commanding when he calls me Arise, says it in all capital letters, reminds me of the direction I must go. Avery tells me Gerald has many children, maybe 10, and he's been trying to unite us, help us get to know his family, my family. I'm unsure and hesitant, feel overwhelmed and say, when I'm ready, I will. At some point in our short conversation, he informs me we are descendants from a maroon colony in Venezuela. Later, he emails me a list of names and birth dates that include half-brothers and half-sisters, uncles and aunts, some living in places like Tennessee and Arizona. One uncle died in the late 1970s. Gerald is a Leo. His mother recently passed, my grandmother, and my grandfather is dead too, died when Gerald was 11 years old. I'm not invited to know much about my father's family because the family is concerned I'll write about them. Avery told me this. They keep the black boy magic from me. My father's family bequeath what Gerald started. In the 10th year of his life, he wrapped his words mute. These words are tight-lipped calories I pitch to the ground just to get inside. They keep the black boy magic from me. It's an unexplored complement that is active and I do not know its properties. Throws me off kilter like one leg is shorter than the other and caught in a whirlpool. I have a gangster swagger, my stress foot dipping, 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 and turning up wet. I find and friend another Gerald child on Facebook. My Facebook sister, who is by nature half my sister, but nothing nurtured these halves. She went to my high school 3 years after I graduated from the High School of Economics and Finance. In one message, she has very little to say about Gerald, near nil information to give. I wasn't checking for him like that. She has no longing to know her father. She is soon to have a child and take selfies that show her baby bump. I find and friend a second Gerald child on Facebook. My Facebook brother, who is by nature half my brother, but nothing nurtured these halves, is 5 years younger. In a series of messages, we set up a phone call. Bryce tells me Gerald was deported for battering his daughter's boyfriend. This boyfriend was beating her, attempting to kill her. Was there a gun? My Facebook brother doesn't know, but Gerald was charged with a felony. For this third strike, he was sent back home to Guyana. And I envy my half-sister for that moment she felt her boyfriend topple from her, relief from abuse, and she entered the cove of Gerald's care. I'm noticing lately fathers with daughters. Of the pictures my mother gave me, I don't have a proper portrait of Gerald. So much chiaroscuro, not enough good. The Polaroid sends cracks through his face. His dark skin absorbs all the light and features aren't distinct. The windows into his soul are shadowed. I'm on his shoulders. We stand tall as the buildings in the distance. My toddler face squints at the sunlight. Neither one of us is really seeing. My mother gave me a dirt road, a house in a township with a tin roof that makes music from all things fallen, in a country of many waters, where the man whose sea nymph surname represents the bounty and beauty of the sea. I write my father at this address. Dear Gerald, I am Denise's daughter, and this is the dream I had of you. The sky ingratiates the sea and is as blue as it desires. This is the backdrop as a car drives us down a natural road, flat lands and wind cleared. Before us, a city glints. Your right nostril comes into view. A fine etched keloid web I touch and something is lit in me. Your irises pitch black and a mouth feel silence where a bond used to be. Do you remember I bear the name you conjured? Its attention turned to your shorelines, to the father missing in us both. I was born on the cusp of fish and fire 5 months after Jonestown in a county of kings. I now live with my girlfriend in California, and the state is experiencing a drought. The more I notice, each season brings an extreme. Why weren't you summer? I watch a housewife on TV tell how, on a visit to her father's, she lost her leg at 6 to a farm machine. She's beautiful, looks like a horse, but in her head, she's missing a leg. Every time she talks, you see the image she has of herself. You see how animal she's become in her fear that she doesn't belong. We will see it, her good foot, and wonder why God allowed this to happen. Question, where was the father? Soon to come, off performing noble cliches. Little girl I was, thought you were loved by way of disappearing. I have been a screen for gazing, allowing the bigger picture to eat the smaller picture. You're one of the classic oldies reeled from my heartbreak. I cheated in my last relationship and my feelings coalesced for you. That girl child me, full of so much fight and sorrow, is tail chasing in a scapegoated posture a perfumer would call fecal. I'm tired of feeling like shit, blurred vision from spinning. I cannot see clearly my belonging. No, that isn't the actual letter I sent. That's the poetry. I wrote a formal note, greeted him the same, Dear Gerald. In the body, I mentioned my mother, Monday Way, living in the Bay Area, that I'm a poet, an editorial manager at a dance magazine, said I would like to reconnect and learn more about him and he about me. Kept it short and simple, fewer than 250 words. This was my initial contact to see if he was still at this address, to know if he was still alive. I signed it, with love, Arisa. And then a postscript. I would love for you to write me a letter so there's something of yours I can keep. Inserted it in an envelope along with a business card that had my picture on one side, my phone number and email on the other. At the post office, the postal worker at the window tells me she has family in Guyana. I respond, me too. Several weeks passed, and on February 14th, I received a call from a strange number, and I let it go to voicemail. It was Gerald. His accent is aged and grave, and so I listen with my whole body. It takes me a few playbacks before I make out all the numbers to his mobile. I call him back on Skype. The connection is bad. His voice moves through a static cloud as thick as our estrangement, but I heard it, and our greetings to each other are joyful. I place my ear to the computer. His tongue is not mother, it's father fast, and it's making me anxious. He recites a poem. I catch every other word, and these remain in my hands. Window, identity, down the river. He gives me the permission to write his poems and therefore mine. Tells me Avery sent him a copy of Hurrah's Nest, my first book. Says, I have the madness in my poems. What's this madness? It is passion. He spells my first name, says, there are stories in each letter. What those stories are, I can't hear. My name translates to there is sand, and each unit of sound means to know when it's enough. This to add to my mother's precious jewels, a beach and diamond clarity and knowing an end. Then for 10 seconds, the static clears. And without difficulty in understanding, he tells me, the only father you got is God, the only one to cry out to, the only one who can hold your body. He goes into his yard in hopes that it may improve the reception. The closer he gets, the bird chirps sharpen and insects come into play. The lull of his patois returning my ears to him, he says into them, I remember your birthday. He warns me time is running out on his call, and he leaves me with, I love you, Arisa. I know I wasn't there, but the love for sure was. Then the static goes dead. Monday Way says, what a perfect Valentine's. And I'll end there. Yay.
Yeah,
thank
after
you.
I was just popping in to say that was all beautiful. I'm in love with all you guys. Thank you for sharing for sharing your words.
I know, I'm in love with them too. So it almost seems like, I mean, it's like, are we just here with each other?
I have the live stream on my phone. There's a chat and there's people. Hi, people.
Hi, people. So do the people have questions for us?
Yeah, so we haven't received any questions yet. If you're watching and holding on to one, it'd be a good time to share it now. But anytime throughout, I'm sure that amongst themselves, the authors probably have some questions for one another.
Yeah.
To get us going, and then if you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and I'll be happy to relay them.
Arisa, I'd love to hear about how you got to this form for the story. Like, did you try other things and then you kind of realized it had to be prose, or how'd that go for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was in a few iterations. Like, it started off as epistolary poems. So when my mom asked me, do you want to write Gerald? I didn't know what to say. So that's when I went to poetry as a place to figure out how to language all of this. And so epistolary poem after epistolary poem. And I had like close to 100 in like different kinds of forms of like, Dear Gerald, Dear Gerald. There was even just a poem that were different versions of a address to him. Like there would be like, Dear DG, Dear DOG. Like there would just be like, it was kind of fun because I couldn't figure out what to say. And because of that, I did a lot of playing. And from there, like I published the epistolary poems as a small chapbook called Dear Gerald. And I was able to do that with a grant I got from the Center of Cultural Innovation in Los Angeles. And with that same grant, I did some workshops in the Bay Area, held space for other people to write about their fathers. And also that same money allowed me to go to Guyana and meet my father and to actually give him that chapbook. And so the chapbook of Dear Gerald has the picture that I read a piece where I described, there's a photo, a Polaroid, I'm on his shoulders and all of that. So there's that image on the chapbook. And when I handed that book to him, I was like, Gerald, my mom said that that's you and me, one of the few pictures with you and me. And he looks at it, he's like, that's not me. And I was like, of course, that's not you. You weren't there. It was my Uncle Butchie who passed away in like 1988, which only just speaks to the fact of like uncles and cousins, stepfather was just stepping in, and so it took that shape for a while. And then I also had my travel notes. I kept a journal. And then I was like curating this poetry reading series at the Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco. And I was hanging out with this exhibit called The Ease of Fiction, which was like contemporary African artists and their work. And something about being in this visual space helped me develop the motif for the book, like using the blue. The blue just kept on coming back. It helped me recall different memories. And in that time in the museum, which was like 8 weeks, that's when I started to write prose. Like it just started to come naturally. I was listening to the artists speak. I was taking their quotes and sort of responding to them. So essentially the line just got longer during that time. And I wasn't concentrating so much on lineation, but really paying more attention to how much sound can I get in a sentence, in a line? How long can it go? How can it sort of function as a conjunction between me and my father, you know? And then with my editor, and I think this is like when the writing process starts to feel really co-creative, in the sense that I'm responding to visual art, I'm responding to researched material, to cultural studies books I'm reading, to YouTube, to Erykah Badu. And then my editor comes along and she's like, expand this, because I really wrote this book starting in Guyana, in that journey. And she wanted me to include childhood. And then she was like, that's where I'm also missing your poetry. So the expansion of it meant bringing back my poetic voice. So it was fun. It was fun figuring out the shape of it. But it was also like, it felt like it was like polyvocal in a way, because it wasn't just me answering the question of who's your daddy, because that's such a big question. It became a communal response to who's your daddy. And so I was just trying to figure out a way to honor that many voices were helping me construct this. And sometimes the delineated line worked. And then sometimes you really needed a prose block to convey all that needed to be conveyed. So it took some time. And I think that was the beauty of it, you know, in all different forms, just like bumping up against different people and different places too.
Thank you. That's so rich. And I want to say just two things before we go on to the next question. One is like, when you said that about 130 or however many it was, epistolary poems, I was like, and you put all those in the drawer, but I guess you got a chapbook out of them.
Yeah, I got a chapbook out of it, but it's also like, it was a revving up too, right? So like there were things I was practicing. I was like practicing, how do I bring in the Creole, you know, like it's kind of interesting in the fact that like English Creole is its own kind of sonics, but then here's me, I didn't quite grow up with it. So I have like broken Creole. But then I felt self-conscious about that. So I was kind of practicing through these epistolary poems, like what's going to be my style? What's going to be my narrator's voice? What kind of attitude is she going to have? So I think I was learning to create a narrative I that was me and wasn't me, because I needed that narrator to do some fun, funky things like moving across time and swimming in ancestral waters and saying spells out of alphabets, you know?
I just wanted to say, I like that you said that, like, who's your daddy became like a communal question, because I think like this reading showed that too. Like,
yeah,
just something about it, the question, the way you write about it, it just invites other people into the space. But also, yeah, there's two questions in chat, so I'll let them ask.
Oh, okay. And then the thing too about who's your daddy, it's like tongue in cheek. It's, you know, it's a little sexual. It's about power. It's, you know, besides just being like father, it just starts bringing in so many other things. Erica, Arisa, what has been your family's reaction to the book? What about Gerald's family? Okay, so I have sent the book to Gerald's youngest brother, and he loves it. The rest of the family, I don't know. My family, so my mom has read it. All the siblings have gotten PDF copies of it, so they are enjoying it. So everyone, I mean, I've gotten a really good response so far, and it's been amazing, actually. I'm like, where is there another? Oh, from Randy James. Hi, Randy James. What was your process like writing these daddy-specific paternal okay. I mean, it was circular, you know. I allowed, and circular in a way of like not chasing your tail, but moving in a sort of gear shift way, you know, in the sense that I was beginning to move out of just a personal I into that more communal I by inviting people in. Because after a while, it just felt like my own life became boring. And so it's like, how can I make this interesting even for me as I explore this question? And a lot of people just had things to say about their fathers, especially when I opened it up for a call for letters. And I got about 17 letters, some from some inmates in San Quentin. One came as far as the Philippines. I was like, oh my God, that's exciting. And once that happened, the work just began to take on new shape and new form. And being in the museum while writing this, you start to realize that everything is influencing and shaping the narrative. It's a matter of recognizing the forms that are usable around you for the story you're trying to tell. And that's what becomes so exciting about the process. Is like every encounter is a poetic form in a way. Every encounter is something to borrow, to cite, to occupy this absence that I'm trying to articulate. So the process was over a course of 7 years, and it was thick, it was interactive. I just allowed myself to play and allowed the work to really shape itself. It's like one of those things where I pushed myself out of my own sort of rules. Like I used more gerunds in my writing. I often don't like talking about poetry in my poems. As you all would know, there'd be times when like you write a poem, they're like, can you not talk about a poem in a poem? Like I broke that rule for myself. So it was like this really interesting way of this idea of creating a persona that's introducing herself to her father. My father knew nothing about me, so I could be everything. You know, it's just something how when we fall into default behavior with our family, like all of a sudden you're around your family and you're like, I'm 12 again. Why am I 12? That couldn't happen with my father. We had no schema for interaction. So that meant I could be a grown ass woman. I could like set boundaries. I could learn how to speak for myself. And because of that, I got to practice that authority in the poetry as well. Take risk, you know, kind of be quirky, be more of like sort of like what I started to recognize is that being queer is not an identity, it's an action. So I can just queer up everything, be disobedient, you know, be a bad girl, you know, like the way that Gerald said to me when I met him in Guyana, he was like, I was not a good guy, you know? So I got to be like a bad gal, you know, and that became really sort of exciting persona to occupy while writing this book, because I broke even my own rules creatively. So I know we're like over our 60 minutes, and the questions were rich. This reading was rich. Thank you so much, Ariel, Dan, Hernan. I love it. I love you all.
Thank you so much for getting us together this way.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, everybody's piece is slap. That was lit. I love being here. Thank you, y'all.
Oh,
That's
I love
great.
being here too. Thank you all so much, and thank you all for tuning in and being here with us and celebrating Arisa's new book, "Who's Your Daddy?" Arisa, is such a treat always to be in your presence, and thanks for bringing us this collection of voices and souls. This was a really wonderful night.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Get the book, everyone, and follow all these authors. Take care of yourselves and stay well. Hope to see you all soon. Good
Thank
night.
you.